This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19 and a half years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella windows.
You're never going to achieve what you want in safety, service, quality, efficiency if you don't focus on the culture. You get that culture right, and the rest will come. And boy, was he right. And that was just an epiphany. Since then, culture is probably the most important thing. You could say safety is the most important thing, but without the culture, you're not going to get the safety.
Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today I'm joined with Mike and Andrew LeJeune from Glass Art Design. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Turns out the second time's the charm. We recorded a couple months ago, and turns out we had Mike's mic turned off. So that's one way to get a silent partner in a business, by the way. So introduce yourself to our audience if they're not aware of you. You guys are a father and son team, and we've had a lot of husband and wife teams on, but I've never had family on. So I think that's kind of a unique story to share. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But tell us a little bit about Glass Art Design and kind of your origin story, if you will, Mike, and then we'll bring in Andrew.
Okay, so I've spent my whole career in construction, but mostly commercial construction. So we used to have a family business called LeJeune Steel, which still exists. My grandfather started it. My dad purchased it from him, and I was working in the business and thought I would take over someday. But it was just a very stressful business for my dad, and he sold it back in 1989. Well, the guy who bought it, Lee Anderson, who owns the API Group, a couple years later ended up making me CEO. And I did that for 4 or 5 years. And then I got recruited to FAMCON, that makes precast concrete wall panels. And I was a CEO there for 20 years. Retired, wanted to find a hobby business that I could bring my kids into that wanted to, and found Glass Art Design just by accident.
Out of curiosity, so I did go down on 13 quite a bit down in Shakopee. Is that the LeJeune, that giant, beautiful steel thing? Is that the original?
That's LeJeune Bolt. So that was a spin-off from LeJeune Steel. My uncle and my dad were partners in the business for a while, and then my dad bought my uncle out, and they had this little bolt business that he took off. That he took, and it really turned out well for him.
Interesting. Now, but that's no longer in the family, or
it is
with him?
My cousin.
Okay,
owns it now.
Beautiful. Tell me, has got a great sign. The building looks like a 1920s bomb shelter from the road, but the sign is super nice. So anyway,
I'll let him know.
Yeah. Tell him I can build him a really nice shed.
So we bought the glass business, and it's Glass Art is like high-end decorative glass, and I kind of started to conclude after a while, I was like, everything I was doing to grow the business was just not, having the desired impact. It was just kind of muddling along, growing slowly. And then Andrew was looking for a job, and I won't steal his story, but I realized as I was helping him try and find something that, boy, I could use a guy like Andrew. So hired him, and he's really taken the company in a great new direction. We bought a company called Glassomere Outlet, which we renamed Glassomere, Minnesota, and that's the growth vehicle. So Glass Art Design continues to muddle along. We'll never let it go because nobody else in the state and hardly anybody in the country does what we do. It's really a spectacular, special company. It's just not a fast-growing company. But Glassomere, Minnesota is turning into a really fast-growing company, and it's all because of, and the aggressiveness that Andrew has brought to the company. That I think aggressiveness I might have had at one time, but XT2 maybe don't have it so much anymore.
Explain to me, before we get into Andrew's story, what is the difference between the two?
Glassomere, Minnesota is more of a commodity glass company, just like the vast majority of the glass companies in town. But
so you had specialty locked up, and you're one of a few fabricators in the country that can do some of the things that you can do, and we'll talk about that maybe later in the podcast. And then you went after maybe some more production stuff to boost revenue, I would imagine.
Right. So that's what Andrew's brought to it. I mean, he's chasing after the national builders, multifamily, things that I always thought, oh yeah, we can't do that. That's not, because I came from that glass art background. But he went after it, and it's been working.
We'll come back to that. We'll get Andrew introduced first. One of the questions I want to come back to, because I think it's really interesting to a lot of people that listen and any entrepreneur. I mean, you essentially have the high-end specialty, and then you have kind of the production, if you will, for lack. I'm thinking of like in terms of homes, right? You have the Lennar Pulte, and then you have Mark Williams Custom Homes. You've got like the high-end custom fat, and then like, but you as you're growing it together, you can really offer the best of both. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And I mean, that was a challenge. How we're going to approach it.
Yeah. I want to talk about profitability in a second versus scalability. Why don't we introduce you to the audience a little bit?
So I went to St. Thomas locally after I went to Colorado for undergrad. Did a JD MBA and got in the leadership program at API Group doing fire protection.
Ironically.
Which API Group is who bought LeJeune Steel. Is kind of unrelated, but the fire protection aspect of it is important because that's like the commodity, unsexy business that I think is really cool, is that it was recurring revenue, consistent revenue, scalable, whereas the custom decorative is less scalable. So I think that mindset pushed me a little bit to bring that to glass art design. I was in New Orleans, moved down there with my wife right after we got married, graduated, new job, starting a new branch in New Orleans, really exciting. One of the things that it brought is that ability to grow something from the ground up in a way, something that was there and not doing well, and to, add these new revenue streams, we had fire sprinkler, now we had fire alarm, extinguishers, specialty industrial, chemical refinery, all this stuff, chasing big customers, big accounts. But we had 2 kids when we were down there. We had a dog. COVID happened, and it's like, man, it's be better to raise our kids with family around. And so I was kind of passively looking, just seeing what was out there. And I kind of mentioned it to obviously my dad, just saying, hey, if you know anybody, or if you have some ideas, and just kind of lined up where COVID hit, and their salesperson, their sales manager had to leave, and kind of lined up perfectly.
Open up the door. What was it about? Was there always been something in you that was kind of entrepreneurial, seeing your dad growing up that way, that made you? Where I'm going with this question is when you went to API, it sounds like you turned it around from what we had talked a little bit.
Yeah, not API around. API is doing great. But my branch.
Credit. That branch.
Yeah.
What was it? I mean, was that attractive to you? Did you look at other places? Was it kind of daunting saying, why did you choose that? The reason where I'm going with this is I've heard sometimes like consultants, like I always wonder, like, why do they love to keep on coming in to clean up a mess? And the answer that I've often heard is like they really enjoyed bringing some order to chaos. And there's a lot of fulfillment in seeing if they can help, bring life back to it. Was some of that?
No, that's right. Yeah, no, there's a lot of that. I think you mentioned maybe last time that, I don't know if it was on wherever it was, I think maybe a podcast, something that you could never have like a normal job again, right? I think you said that before.
That's a podcast, yeah.
And I think there's something in my spirit that I just couldn't be in the cubicle climbing up the corporate ladder in that same way. API Group is unique, that they had all these different businesses, and they kind of let you be a little bit more independent and decentralized. So this branch, I mean, it's your company, basically. You're running this company. You're responsible for financials, hiring, firing, the EBITDA. I mean, you've got this administrative aspect at the corporate level, and they're driving you to hit your results, but it's kind of your baby, and you grow it as you do. You find your own customers, you grow into your own markets, you add new revenue streams. But yeah, I mean, I had the option of going to different places. So this leadership program that I joined, you get to travel around the country for a year, go to different companies for 4 to 6 weeks, shadow the CEO, just, basically.
What was the name of this networking group? That sounds really fascinating.
No, it was part of the company.
Oh, it's part of the company.
It's a really, API is great. I mean, they have these leadership programs.
I see.
They kind of weren't a pioneer, but they're kind of an early adopter of that model, and I think it's a great model. But you kind of shadow these leaders in the company all around the country, and then at the end, they'll basically bid on you to come in, either take their branch over or take their,
That is a fascinating model.
Yeah.
I love what I hear there.
And the bid is like, okay, I want to pay this guy. It's basically payment, and this is what we'll pay you.
Right.
And you got to be in the sales role or operations role.
How long had he been working for the company before this shadowing sequence happened?
Right out of the chute.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's part of the path to hire.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to be in. And so they hired me on to do that. And so naturally, you're kind of in this, being groomed for this leadership role in some way or another. And I had the option to go to this really developed branch where this guy was 75, let's say. I don't know how old he was, but he was on his way out. But he was probably going to be there for like another 5 years. So he was 70. I think he was going to go till 75. He'd been there forever. Like, okay, 5 years there. Then there was another branch that was even more, developed, kind of the cream of the crop. They had the highest EBITDA of every other branch.
Explain what EBITDA is. I'm not familiar with that term.
Operating profit.
Okay.
So earnings before interest, taxes,
that I know.
depreciation, amortization. Yeah.
This corporate speak, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, but profit.
Yeah, gotcha.
They had the highest profit margins, and that would have been great because you get a piece of, you get your bonuses tied to that. But it was another 5 years before it would be my own, and I just wanted something to build on my own. So I don't know, something about the chaos to order I think I like. And then even like, glass art, he says muddle along. I don't know if it's muddled along. I think we've got really good relationships, and we've been developing these relationships with custom builders, designers, and it's growing. But what he means by muddled, I think, is that it's just not growing as fast as I want or as he wants. So I think the commodity, the scale is there. And I think growing something is pretty important to both of us. And, I like that challenge of, okay, those are my sales targets. I'm going to get those, I'm going to get those sales.
What was it? And Mike, have you always had a growth mindset? And where I'm going with this is, I recently for myself have often thought about like, do you grow? And I think that's one of my questions here. So we're do quality. I can't do quantity. You've found a way essentially to do a hybrid, which you can essentially do both. I'm just interested, like from when you started, because you've owned Glass Art for 30 years?
No, 6 years.
6 years.
6.5. Yeah.
Okay. But you were working within the Glass Art for quite a while before you bought it out or not?
No. Didn't know a thing about glass when I bought it.
That's even cooler.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I bought it thinking I was buying a hobby business.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then I discovered there's no hobby business.
No, that's true. I agree with that. Well, let's stay on the question. Tell me a little bit about, so then did you grow, then you bought it knowing that you want to scale it? Was that the goal? Okay.
Yes. And thought that it was a little bit more scalable than it is. And it would be if it was in Las Vegas, because what we sell at Glass Art is bling.
Yeah.
And this is not a bling market.
Yeah.
There's a little bit, but you're not going to, and so you can grow, but you're not going to grow fast. Our biggest products here for Glass Art Design are showers and mirrors, but it's a lot of specialty showers and mirrors too, and just real high end customers that want that kind of an experience.
And if you don't want to share these stats, or if you don't know them, we can bypass the question. Maybe just give it higher level. But like I assume if you're doing more customization, you can charge a higher percentage of profit for quality. Was that true?
Correct.
And if you're doing quantity, like going, the glass and mirror, you're going after national accounts, you're competing, I assume, more on volume than on percentage. Is that true or not?
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's the gist of it. I mean, I think there's obviously differences within each vendor, within each, there's all these different things. And, we have different vendors for showers, we have different vendors for mirrors, and we can be a little bit more competitive and try to get those same margins.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll play out to be similar margins in a lot of regards. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of the play there. And for example, I mean, I think you're getting, let's say Lennar, and they do, 1,600 houses a year. They call it units.
Units, yeah.
Yeah. And if you're saying, okay, you've got $1,000 per, okay, and you get all of them, which you don't, they never give it all. But
right.
That's, what is that?
1.6 million.
1.6 million
in mirrors,
in showers and mirrors
at $1,000 a piece.
Yeah. And for each house, and
16 million. I can't do that.
Yeah. I think that's 1,000 times. It's 16 million. So 16 million. We're not getting that whole thing, but that like simple math. Okay, there's you get a low margin on that, but it'd be $1 million margin versus how many custom homes of
right,
$30,000, which would be a big shower and mirror job. $30,000 in showers and mirrors isn't going to take to get there.
You know, we've had cabinet guys on before. Rich Hip was on, one of our cabinet guys, and he's a smaller shop, but, you know, they have a CNC machine. And basically the idea is like the more you can keep that CNC machine running and being down, the more profitable you are. Is there some advantages? I assume you have a lot of computer software that's helping you run some of your manufacturing, and we can talk a little bit about where you're getting your glass from or how it comes to you if you're just cutting it, things like that. But with the volume that you're talking about, I imagine that's going to make you extremely efficient because you could probably batch produce stuff. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's alternatives. I mean, you can start buying, you know, mass quantities of stock mirrors, shower doors, different things, types of kits, something that we're kind of going into. But we've also, I mean, we just redesigned our whole basement to accommodate the amount of metal cutting, the amount of glass storage that we're going to be cranking through there. And it's different than our model, because before you'd get this, you know, custom shower door in and you'd have it custom size, you'd have it checked in. We're I don't know, we're one of the only glass companies, I'm sure others do it, that check in every glass. We buff it, we edge it down, we make sure it's to the, you know, 16th of an inch perfect with no scratches, blemishes, anything like that. And I know a lot of glass companies that do that, but you can't do that in the Lennar model. I mean, you can't be checking in 1,600 shower doors and, you know, cranking it through. I mean, we still care about quality, so there's a scratch here, a scratch there, but, you know, your $20 million Lake Minnetonka house, that, you know, that builder, that PM, that soup cares a lot more about that 1/8 gap and that scratch than, you know, your semi-frameless stick metal kit.
Which do with Lennars, you buy extras, and you put extras on the truck. And if you get out there and installers say this one doesn't look very good, we'll just bring it back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. From a quality standpoint, I mean, are you able to leverage? Do you feel like it seems like it'd be a good balance? You have the scalability and the kind of the horsepower, if you will, to you know, knock out 1,600 you know, units for Lennar, but you also have the capacity for the detail work. How have those two segments kind of complemented each other? Are you able to go a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient now in the quality work, and maybe be a little bit more quality in the quantity work, or does that not necessarily?
I think, to be clear, we're just starting with Lennar, so we're nowhere near 1,600 units. They've got it spread out amongst others. They're just one, you know, good.
Sure, just an example.
A good example.
Yep.
But I would say when we bought Glassomir, was Glassomir Outlet, now Glassomir, Minnesota, they were more competing on that, you know, in that commodity world, and glass companies in that world don't always deliver the kind of quality that Glassart does.
They don't check in. They didn't check in showers and mirrors, which is what most glass companies are doing. They're just not checking in. They just get them in, put them on the truck, and install them, and hope they don't notice.
Yeah.
Wow.
We kind of quickly determined that, you know, we've got a really skilled staff that takes a lot of pride in what they do, and there's no way we could tell them to do a lesser job because we got a little bit less money for it. So we still checked everything in, but kind of to your point, I think, so we're delivering better quality, but we can still be competitive on that end. But then on this other end, when we bring in some of these more, you know, volume type people, they see our showroom, they're just, you know, blown away. I mean, they're coming in seeing, I wonder if these guys are up to the task, and they're not expecting what they see when they walk in the door. It's a very impressive showroom and a shop, and we've got a lot of equipment and a lot of really skilled people.
So two questions here. I guess we'll stay focused on the one that we're at with the facility. Your facility is in like North Loop area, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so when you bought the other business, you know, Glassomir, Minnesota, did you take over their facility and like you still keep it and just run it as is, or did you move that all into your one warehouse?
We moved
Both.
it all there. Yeah,
Both.
We had a hold on for a while and thought that's probably what we would continue to do.
Yep.
And it just was really awkward. I mean, we have a culture, they had a different culture, and we wanted to, you know, bring everybody into our culture, and there's just no way to do that with two separate locations.
Where was their location previously?
Hopkins.
And how did you had the capacity clearly to bring it all into shop? I mean, was that an issue, or is it an issue now?
It is an issue. I mean, it is an issue in a way, but not an issue. I mean, we have all the equipment and people that, you know, we brought in, and they fit perfectly in our space. But to get to that point, there was a lot of, I mean, moving a beveler, a glass beveler, it costs a lot of money. It has to be perfect. And bevels are a very unique thing. I mean, it has to be perfectly straight. And if it's not, people are going to notice. So, you know, tinkering with that machine after it was installed, you know, all those little things that you don't think about. So it was a process. Yeah. Every little thing was a process.
It's amazing how much space we found in our building.
Reoriented.
Because
Did
we
you
had-
bring did you bring architects or designers? How did you do?
No.
How did you lay everything out?
Are you familiar with the lean manufacturing, the
Yes.
concept of
Yep.
lean?
Yep.
There's a concept within lean called a Kaizen.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with it?
Yeah, I am.
We have a lot of Kaizens.
Interesting.
And they're not real formal like I was used to. Like when I was with a big company, we had real formal Kaizens with paperwork and everything. These are much more informal, but we do bring in a cross-functional team, and we look at an issue or a problem or an opportunity, and we figure out how to attack it. And sometimes I'm a big believer in it's more important to move than to be perfect. And sometimes we would do something and then we'd have to come back and fix it. But at least we were making progress. And as a result, bringing Glass-A-Mirror, Minnesota into our shop really allowed us to find a lot of extra space and realize that there's a lot of different ways we could do things. And now that we've got all this other work coming in, and it's just hitting now. So this is a really exciting and scary time in a way, because we're trying, we've got more glass about to flow through our shop than ever has. But like Andrew talked about what we did in the basement, I mean, it's just, it was great the way it all came together and how fast it came together. And I think it's going to work great. I bet we'll tweak it 10 more times, but what we did is good. And it's been, I find that one of the most enjoyable things is problem solving, that kind of problem solving. It's almost more like a jigsaw than something doesn't fit on a project. That's not as exciting. But this has been really fun.
This episode is brought to you by Adaptive. Adaptive is an AI technology that we use for all our cash flow management. If you're in construction, you know how difficult this is. The days of importing all your invoices, cost coding them, asking 10 people in your office where they get coded, is this job approved, is this invoice approved, making notes, all of that is now done through AI. Your invoices get automatically uploaded. After that, all you have to do is cross-check its accuracy per the jobs. This is now saving us hours per job per month, because with a click of a button, you can now have the draw process automated, which has been a complete game changer. On top of that, it's going to track your lien waivers as well as your certificates of insurance, making sure that everyone is in compliance before their bills are paid. This is saving us hours and hours per job per month, all with a click of a button. If you want to know more, check out adaptive.build. Additionally, we interviewed Matt Covano on episode 15 of the Curious Builder Podcast. You can find out more about it on our website as well at thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com. This episode is brought to you by Alpine Hardwood Flooring. They've been our partner now for over a decade, installing all our wood floors on all our new homes as well as our remodels. And on a personal level, Adam and Anthony Jankola, the owners, are just absolutely amazing people. They've been so supportive of my career as well as doing anything we need to make sure that our clients are happy. And they work so well with our other vendors and trade partners at not only protecting their product, but also ensuring everyone else's looks great. So if you're looking for a wood floor or for a refinish, I highly recommend Alpine Hardwood Flooring. Find them at alpinehardwoodmn.com or alpinehardwoodmn on Instagram.
How did you keep the old building for storage, or what do you do with the old building in Hopkins, or did you sell it?
It was a lease building.
Oh, it was a lease
The
building.
lease was up a year after we bought it, and so we just let it lapse.
Okay. All right. So that kind of worked out well and cut your overhead and brought it in.
Yeah.
So obviously that increased profitability.
Yeah, no, that was our intent originally, and we kind of slow rolled bringing them over just because I think there was some desire to kind of keep that presence, and we wanted to evaluate it. But there was some advantage to being there. I mean, there were local people that were used to going there and different things like that. But at the end of the day, the culture was so important that we didn't want these two separate cultures and conflicting, and it's like we need to all be in the same spot.
One of the things that would be curious to question you about, Mike, because it relates to even you guys' buying of this business now. You were looking for a business to buy 6 years ago, I would assume? And not really?
I really thought I was going to take a couple years off. I had retired, and I really expected to take a couple years off. And this buddy of mine called and said, yeah, I found this building I want to buy. He's in real estate, and it's got this business, and they go together. And maybe you could buy the business, and I can buy the building. And I go, well, I'll go take a look. And I just told myself, don't jump at the first thing. But when you do walk in our showroom, you'll see why. I walked in, and I go, oh, this is really cool.
Wow. That's funny. Because, that shoots my assumptions. So I was thinking that you had, what I was going with the question to, I started, my company, and I'm always interested. I think had someone told me you could go buy a company now after 20 years of building a company, it takes a lot of work. And there's a lot of things I'm just now doing in year 19 and 20 that I was like, man, why didn't I do this? Where I think there's huge value in buying a business. I think sometimes we think we have to start a business. I know that builders in general, along with, certain other industries, there's a low barrier of entry. Like anyone could essentially go be a builder. It also makes it a little bit more difficult to sell your business. Like you guys could walk away and still sell Glass Art Design because it's a viable company. And we talk about that on the podcast too, the difference of working on your business and working in your business. And if you work in your business, you are an employee. If you work on your business, you're an owner. And I feel like I've only recently understood that, I'm an employee of my own company.
Sure.
Until I can create some systems that are more scalable, there's not, the asset really isn't here. And maybe you're underselling it. That's not really the point. The point is like when you were looking at Glass Art, I was thinking like, oh man, how did you look at it? How did you analyze it compared to other companies? But it was just the right opportunity at the right time.
Right. And I would say, how did I analyze it ineffectively?
Thanks for making me feel better.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think I bought the company I thought I bought wasn't exactly what I bought, but between Andrew and I, we've turned it into the company we wanted.
So then let's fast forward here. When you bought, Glass and Doors of Minnesota, or Mirrors and Doors of Minnesota, how did you look at that? Why did you identify that? Because it's kind of neat that you bought a company 6 years ago, and then only 5 years into building, you bought another company. I mean, that's pretty cool. And I understand where the strategy is, but walk me through like your mind process of like, why buy it versus just, was it taking out the competition or also you having access to their network, or what was the advantages of buying it versus starting one?
I wish it was that intelligent, like we had approached it that way, like you described, but it wasn't. Unfortunately, what it was is like, I'm a business owner and I want to grow it. I mean, if you don't grow it, you can't grow the profitability either. And that's obviously what we're in business for, at least partially. And so I was looking for a business to buy, and we looked at another business completely unrelated, not glass at all. I don't want to go into it, because you'll ask a million questions about it.
This is actually going to be a mini series. It's a 10 series episodes. Really Mike and Andrew.
We got beat up by another bidder, and then a buddy of mine had this business and some other businesses, and had been really frustrated with the glass business. For all the reasons that any glass business owner would be frustrated, but it's not like other businesses. It's not quite as easy. You're not making just widgets. But in any event, he wanted to sell, and we wanted to buy something that we could grow, and that's how it came together.
So another one of those things one of the questions I have on here is networking. Because, I see both of you at, all the Minnesota Housing First stuff. You guys have come to some of my live events, and just, I feel like Andrew in particular, but I didn't know much about your history as networking. Just really asking open-ended question, how beneficial to your business and even future growth have you found networking? And just maybe comment a little bit about that.
I'll let Andrew answer mostly, but I will say that Andrew's really a networker, and it's been really beneficial for the business, much more so than I have been. I enjoy it. I just don't seem to have the time to do it, and Andrew makes the time to do it, and it's been really valuable.
Yeah. Should I list out all the organizations?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So NARI, Business Development Committee, Project Build, which we talked about last time.
Yeah, we did.
Outreach Committee, Associated Builders and Contractors, Business Development Committee, Housing First, Advocacy Committee, Ambassador Committee, Clay Shoot Task Force, Green Path Committee.
Clay Shoot Task Force.
Young professionals. Yeah, no, the Clay Shoot Task Force. I put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah. I do
I
like
didn't
to
do
blow
anything.
stuff out of here.
I'm just saying, there is networking opportunities there too.
Agreed.
And then I was like, all right, I'm maxed out. Because I also am involved in the church and all this other stuff too. And University.
I'm adding these up. We're at like roughly 10 right now.
Yeah, so University of St. Thomas, which we talked about last, like a small peer group, which is great. Which so I was like, all right, I'm maxed out, and people know that you're involved in a lot of committees, and they're like, hey, do you want to be the chair of the programs committee for ASID? Okay, yeah,
Right.
I just can't say
It's
no.
clearly this guy has a problem saying yes.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, exactly. And no, I think there's some benefit to it too. I think, obviously there's, as you know, getting your name out there, building that network, there's all that part of it too. But, the reason I'm involved in the church, involved in St. Thomas, and the law school, I forgot about that too. Yeah. So, is because I think, and maybe it was COVID, I'm down in New Orleans. I don't know anybody. I can't really get traction in the community. I was like, all right, I'm gonna get involved in the community, and I'm gonna get involved in because I want to see a certain thing, but I also want to know people. I want to grow my network. I want to, be involved. And I just started saying yes to everything and doing it, and I love it. I'm a salesperson at heart. I'm a social person, and I think it's paid off. I mean, we've had a lot of customers come over. We've met a lot of people, and I think a big part of our growth, especially in multifamily, is because of networking.
It's interesting because I think early on in your career, or at least for me anyway, when I heard the word networking, I always thought that was something that people did in their 40s and 50s. Well, turns out I'm mid-40s now, so I guess that's time. But part of it is, if you're a social person, you kind of just have this network. But I think it's like networking to me now is something like with more intentional purpose. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit. I think for me personally, one of the things I like most about the networking is I just generally enjoy other people as businesses. And I mean, it could be people, it can be other things like church or, any other, actually my daughter today is with my grandma doing children giveaway stuff, trying to teach the kids, about, some of the things that they don't know about. Right. And so there's all these outreach programs, far more than I have time for. And one of the questions I have for both of you that would maybe transition is, how have you found balancing your time? It's a popular question that I ask as I'm constantly trying to refigure my balance and in life, as I have 3 young kids and trying to, navigate that. Maybe I'll turn this question to Mike first is, what are some time balancing things that you've been able to manage in your career that you feel have been successful? And what are some things that if you did do it again, you would do it differently? And I'd ask the same question to you, Andrew, after that.
It's a good question. I always felt like I did travel a lot when I was with FabCon. So, but outside of that, I tried to always be home on weekends and tried not to work too late during the weekday, and just tried to create an environment around myself that allowed me to work in that way. And so, always recognize that my family was the most important thing, and I needed to put time into that. So, I'm not really struggled with it. I'm more of an introvert than Andrew's more of an extrovert. So I like networking opportunities for about a half hour.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'm just going crazy and want to go home.
Sure.
Andrew obviously he enjoys it a little bit more.
Well, you would too if you had a CO2 powered golf ball shooter like you had at the last golfing outfit. That was pretty fun. Yeah, we'll add that to your 75
the golf task force.
The golf task task force.
Yeah. Anyway, I've always kept a balance, and now since Andrew's taken over the business, it's been great. I mean, he doesn't need me for the day to day, and I think what he needed me for initially was sales, and now with all the networking, he doesn't need me for that either. So I have a lot of time.
Yeah, we can talk about AI in a minute. Whatever you manage, I mean, you have young kids like I do. How do you manage? You obviously, it's fair to say, probably overcommitted in a lot of areas. With all these networking responsibilities, I find myself in the same boat. How have you kind of navigated this both as a family man and also as a business owner?
It's funny. It's definitely a challenge. I live a lot by my calendar, a lot more than I did before. I mean, I try to, schedule every part of my day now. And that's important. I do care, about being there for dinner with my family. And my wife would probably say, well, you could be there more often. And I don't think I'm at least 4 days a week there. I mean, I think the summer was a little bit more networky, a lot more golf tournaments, different things like that. But as the general day-to-day, you're probably doing like 2 networking events at night a month, and then everything else is kind of during the day. And then, there's committees that are Zoom and different things like that. But, 3 young kids, school, sports, all that stuff is a little bit of a work commitment. But if it dies down, then I'm like, oh, I need to do something else. So I think that's part of that same, I want to grow this business. And if we started being steady, I'd be like, all right, what's the new thing to grow into?
I know.
Yeah. And once I get to one thing, I'm like, all right, now I'm good with that. Let's do the next one.
It's funny.
I like the challenge.
I had coffee with a good friend of mine who's a real estate agent, and his family's out of town for MEA weekend. And he says he always takes every MEA weekend to be away from his family. Actually, they go to his in-laws' place, and he spends 4 days, and he says, I need that downtime, kind of some alone time. And I try to just read some books and be alone. And I just reflected, like, if I had 4 days alone, like, I would make so many appointments with see my friends and family and cousins and uncles. And I would go to every sporting event. I would absolutely, if I had all this free space, I would just fill it all up with as much as I possibly could. I think, is that kind of what you're saying?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Like, man, that's like my Carrie Ann, that's my wife. So she is an introvert, kind of like he is, and she'd love like a weekend to just kind of like chill out. And I'm like, all right, I'm home this weekend because we're going hunting or we're going to the cabin or something like that. I'm home this weekend. What do we got going on? She's like, oh, nothing. And we just got nothing this weekend. We can do whatever. All right, we're going to the Renaissance Festival, then the State Fair, then we're going to do this. And I've got to fill it with all these things, and I don't know what it is. I just go crazy sitting at home.
I mean, we get restless.
Yeah.
And for me, I found that I can maybe change the parameters because I have a introverted wife that, likes alone time or family time. And I'm fine with that too. But it's like, it's little things, it's like, now my kids are into games and I love games. So it's like, I played 2 games with Tate. I played 2 games with Simon. I'm just like, trying to figure out ways to do it. And, you got to get out too and do some, exercise. For me is I got to get out and get that. So anyway.
Yeah.
Interesting. How, for going to the kind of the relationship, you have a father and son team. When you came on into the company, did you have any reservations about being a son, working with your dad? How would that partnership look like? And I'll ask that question to you first as the son, but then I'll flip it to you, Mike, as the dad. Like, there's always, I'm just kind of curious to hear how you've navigated that.
I guess I didn't know what it'd be like. I mean, obviously I've known him my whole life, so I knew generally what it'd be like, but we've never worked together. So, no, I mean, I said yes right away, no reservations. But yeah, I think we've both kind of, pushed and pulled to get to where we are. That's a good space. And I think, I obviously have the way that I want to, I'm trying to push in this direction and, trying to get on the same page there. And generally, I would say we are on the same page. And I mean, we think about things very similarly. We have the same intent about how to grow the business, how to keep the culture as it is, what's important, and what kind of people we want in our organization. So there's a lot of that. And I think one of those things which I kind of alluded to as well is I'm going to pitch another organization, which is St. Thomas Family Business Center, which I've been introducing tons of people to. I think
even if you're not an alumni, you can be a part of it?
Yeah. No, it's all Family Business Center. And I mean, it's the alumni, not important. So like Select Surfaces, those, they're, 4 siblings. I had met Tanya through ASID, and I was like, well, you should check this out. And so I think they're a member, and a couple others. I think Black Dog Homes, family business.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I think it's great. And it's like to have that peer group of different people in the same situation. One person's in appliances, one person's in injection molding, different things like that. But we all have the same type of problems, the same types of, okay, how do I tackle this issue? How do I do this? And, how do the employees look at me? Is it, oh, he just got the job because he's the son, or, whatever. And, all those types of challenges and how to grow the business in the right way.
From a family aspect.
Yeah.
That's that's fascinating. What was the name of it again?
It's a Family Business Center at St. Thomas, University of St. Thomas. Okay. Yeah, it's great. I mean, there's actually a lot of people that are actually involved in Housing First. Not a lot, but there's a few that are also involved in that.
I've often joked that, my kids I'm 43 and my daughter is 7, who she'd be an amazing owner. But man, I really hope to retire before she's like ready to go. It's like, man, I hope they have no interest in building because I don't want to be around still building at that point. Yeah, but we'll see, How about for you, Mike, when, you thought about bringing your son on as a dad, he's a business partner. He's also your son. Was that kind of in your psyche at all?
Yeah, I was, a little bit concerned about it, but I've always been really close with all my kids. And I think we can talk pretty straight. So I wasn't too worried. I kind of think in the back of my mind, as I think about it now, I was probably bringing him in. And I was like, okay, well, he'll do all the stuff I don't like, and I'll just go do the stuff I like. And, well, he came in, he wanted to change everything. I didn't like anything.
Look at him smiling over there.
Yeah. And, but there are good changes, but gut wrenching. I mean, just, when you change systems, that is a gut wrenching change. And it was stressful. And that was probably the most stressful thing on our business relationship, was when he was changing all our systems, and we didn't have any visibility, and I didn't like the results, and
Because it takes, how long would you say it takes? A year? And when you say systems, what systems are we talking about?
New operating system, software system, and then all that, just every process for every sales, shop, install.
What was it? Is there a name to it, or is it something you used when you were down in New Orleans, or is it?
It's called the Andrew LeJeune system. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't know. I mean, we've got a really good group of people, and we basically identified that when we brought over Glassmere Outlet, that they were QuickBooks is one of the systems, but they were using advanced inventory items, estimating sales order, purchase order, which we had our own system too, and we had QuickBooks, but we had this other system called FileMaker, and we were basically entering everything in FileMaker and then re-entering it to invoice in QuickBooks just to get that in those financial.
Yeah.
But it wasn't accurate. There's a lot of problems with when we were accruing the cost, when we were accruing the revenue, keeping the month straight, direct cost, indirect cost, all these different things that, kind of need. And so like our revenue line was like revenue, cost of goods sold, and, that's just material cost. And then there's 40 lists of the expenses for all these different things. And it's like, all right, we need to change this a little bit to get some.
So you tried to in your mind, you were trying to simplify the systems?
In a way, yeah. So, I mean, we changed over ours to, one is like we weren't trying to duplicate, but also streamline a lot of the systems. So, I mean, everything from how, the initial inquiry goes for an estimate, how that gets communicated, customer gets set up, how the sales order gets set up from there, how each item gets set up, the costs associated with it, all the 3,000 items, all the different types of customers, all the different kinds of installation methods, and then what do we do about custom things? What do we do about this? And then, who's purchasing it? How's it being purchased? How does that system need to be? And then how can it all streamline so then it ties into the financials and, all these different things. And it was thousands of moving parts, literally thousands and thousands.
I can understand. I'm in Mike's camp here. I would have just been having, my blood pressure would have been going through the roof here.
Yes, my wife, I didn't show it at work, but yeah, I was like, holy crap.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, what I found when I bought a small business, I said there's no such thing as a hobby business because there's nobody to do anything. I mean, you do everything. And so Andrew said, we're gonna, convert to this system, thinking that, different people would be able to do different parts, but nobody had time. Everybody had their day job. So it all fell on him. So I think you probably put in hundreds of hours entering data and trying to get everything up to speed. And then we brought, outside consultants, which were really expensive to help us.
Did you find that was helpful or not?
Oh, hugely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then over the course of all that, we got a new bookkeeper who ended up being super helpful as well. So it was frustrating. I don't think it, I never felt any differently about Andrew. I don't know how he felt about me, but there was one day I sent an email asking about something, and I think he took it as criticism of him. And I was actually just asking a question, and I was frustrated that I didn't have the answer. And I got this text message: "We need to talk." And he sent me this. Well, it actually was an email, and the subject was "We need to talk," and then it was several paragraphs of all his frustrations, and I just felt terrible. And when we did talk, I first right away I said, "I'm really sorry. I mean, I think you're doing a great job. I appreciate everything you're doing. I'm just I ask a lot of questions, and I am frustrated.
Right.
But it's not because I don't trust you or have faith in you. I'm just, it's just a tough time.
It's just frustrating. You got to kind of get through it, right? There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't get to the place we want to scale if our systems are not good.
And the thing I never wanted to be was a seagull manager. Wow, somebody who flies in, shits on everybody, then leaves. So I'm trying to try really hard not to do that. So we've made a point to, go out to lunch at least once a week and just talk about things. How's it going? And if he has any frustrations, hopefully he would share it with me. And that's been really helpful. You think that you're passing each other in the hall and talking, that you get everything out, but you don't. You really need that time to just set aside to really talk about the business and what's going on. And then, of course, the systems came together, so a lot of the frustration went away. And
how long into your employment before you kind of pitched this to your dad, saying like, "Hey, we need a systems change"?
Immediately.
I said, "Where's our job costing? Where's our..."
That was your onboarding process, was to change the plane?
Yeah. Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just thought there was, and I didn't want to. I thought
You just felt that's
Yeah.
why you were brought on probably too. I mean, did you know? Did you have an inkling that was going to happen?
No.
No.
Yeah. But
So awesome.
But it's like, okay, and part of this, we did 6 months into it, we're acquiring a new company. And I think that was kind of one of the motivators. And I'm like, one of the reasons I wanted to is because, like I said, I was in the fire protection business. I want this unsexy, scalable business, more commodity. That's, and, the idea there is that, okay, that pays for the overhead and then the rest is gravy, right? That's kind of the idea.
Sure.
But our system was not scalable at all. In fact, the more work we got, the more complicated our paperwork got, the more, and it's like the less information was on the paperwork, the less, and so it's like, it's not scalable. Okay, if we want to grow, if we want to have this many more jobs, this much more revenue, we have a broken system that the more jobs and more revenue we have on, the worse off we are. We need to do it. And so I think, that was always in my mind. And it's like, I have this vision of growing to this size, and we can't get there unless we have a good system.
What's the reason for the drive? I mean, you both have this. I mean, obviously, you more so right now that I can tell. I mean, you're fist pumping right now.
Yeah.
But
Come on.
Yeah. What the drive? What is the drive for? Is it the biggest, more profitable, more like just energy? Like we can do more. Like what are some drive factors?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's success. It's building the company that I want it to be, that I see it. I have this vision of what it should be. I think that's part of the drive. I'm also competitive. I think anyone who plays a game with me, or whether it's beanbags or cards, I'm, trying to win every time. And, I it's part of my nature.
Yep.
So I think, okay, if we don't have this, this customer, why not? Who else has it and why? Like, how do we get that customer?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Sure.
So
Sure. Okay.
I think there's a little bit of both. But yeah, I think, one of the drivers is there's a vision I see for this company, and I want it to get there, and I don't have time to wait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think business is the ultimate sport, and it's not just about profits or revenue, but how do you grade a business? Well, profits is one, revenue is another, culture is another, safety is another. So you want to be the best. Like anything I do, and I'm sure like you're the same. I want to be the best. I want to win.
And I think also your employees, right? So like, how big is your team?
25.
25. I mean, there's something as an owner too. We all think about our team, and you in the sense that like nobody wants to hire someone only to have to let them go. Like these are families you're taking care of, and like so people talk about culture. And we had someone actually was at Engelbrick, one of the owners of Pella Windows, him and Peter Martin. I think they were episode 1 actually.
Yep.
And they said that culture trumps strategy every time.
Mm-hmm.
I've mentioned that a lot because that's really resonated with me. And sometimes I wonder personally, like, I don't give a lot of time to myself thinking like, oh, I'm a leader or not. So then sometimes I'm like, oh man, am I a bad leader? Like if we're struggling as a company, is it my fault? I mean, it likely is. I mean, my name's on the sign, right? So anyway, I guess where I'm going with that is like, how have you guys found success in thinking about your employees, creating you both have mentioned culture a few times. Saying, it was one of the things that was one of the reasons why you consolidated everyone under your roof. Talk to us a little bit about, some things that you think about and some things that you've been able to basically enable that has created a positive, team culture.
So I came from a dinosaur industry, the steel business, in the 80s. I mean, I started working there in the 70s and was the CEO in the 80s. And it was...
Andrew, that's before internet.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, safety was just not something that people thought that much about. And cultures, all that touchy-feely stuff, nobody cared about that. And when I got to FAMCON, it was the same. And we had four main principles: safety, service, quality, efficiency. And I focused on those things. And, we did talk about culture, and obviously I wanted people to be happy there. And I recognized that if people weren't happy, they weren't going to want to work for us, and they wouldn't want to stay, and turnover is bad. And I wouldn't say we had a terrible culture. But I had a HR director, I'll say, and he came to me and he said, you're never going to achieve what you want in safety, service, quality, efficiency if you don't focus on the culture. You get that culture right, and the rest will come. And boy, was he right. And that was just an epiphany for me. And to me, since then, culture is probably the most important thing. You could say safety is the most important thing, but without the culture, you're not going to get the safety. I mean, it really comes down to the culture. You won't get any of the other things. And it also makes it a fun place to work, which I'm still spending most of my time there, and I like going there, and I want it to be a place where everybody likes to go there.
What are some things that you would say is a positive culture? Like, how would you define a positive culture?
I mean, the number one thing is respect. In my opinion, you treat everybody with respect. And something I say all the time, people are, I'm sure, really sick of hearing it, is assume best intentions. Nobody goes to work in the morning trying to do a bad job or planning on doing a bad job. And, that person that you think isn't working very hard because your department works so hard and nobody else does anything, walk a mile in their shoes and you're going to find out that
that's really good advice summed up into a single sentence. And it reminds me of something I heard once, that we judge other people by their actions, but we want people to judge us based on our intentions.
Sure.
And I like the way you phrased it.
I like the way you phrased it.
That came from more of a spiritual background of just like, it's easy, picking out the mote out of your brother's eye and worry about the beam in your own eye. But I think that's the thing, right? And we don't know because, you're your own person. I can't read your mind. I'm not Professor Xavier. And so, the point here is like, you need to ask people. But I love the idea that if you go into a situation assuming that they have done their best or tried their best, or simply you don't know the answer, or ask a question. Yeah. And I could use a good reminder of that. I like sometimes when someone on my staff, we just did a personality test recently. And so it's just interesting to see, I don't know if you guys done any of the DISC assessments or some of that stuff. It's really a lot of personal, super enlightening. We did this one called Insights, and it was incredible.
Yeah, heard about that one.
So incredible. That's funny because you're reading it and you're like, wow, how is this? It's like your brother wrote this about you. Like, they know everything, and it's incredibly accurate. Anyway, where I was going with this is sometimes, I'm a very strong red-yellow, which a lot of business owners are. And, like the green-blue in this scenario, they need more time to process, a little more feelings, where more like your frustrated analogy. I want an answer now.
Into their throat and pull the words out.
Yeah. Or you try finishing their sentence, because that always goes really well.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, then it's like, I've had my staff before, Mark, take a deep breath, relax, and let me just explain everything. Because it's like, as soon as you're saying something, I keep jumping ahead 6 or 7 steps. So I've taken it now where I usually bring a notepad in and I start writing stuff down because I can't stop the thoughts. And so I feel like if I can write them down, I'm not sure that might give my staff more anxiety, because it's like, as they see me writing, like, oh man, Mark is just like, wigging out over there with his notepad, But anyway, how have you processed that with team members that have maybe different energy levels or different personality sets? How have you harnessed that so that you don't overwhelm them?
It's got older.
Yeah. I mean, it does. Maturity does help.
Older and mellowed out and went through a lot of the same exercises that you're talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of time, and just, you become wiser over time. I had a long way to go, that's for sure. I started from a very low spot, but over time and making a lot of mistakes, you kind of learn how to deal with people.
I found that marriage, actually, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary yesterday.
Congrats.
Thank you. And it's funny how often I think of building a home is super emotional, right? I want to Google this because I use it enough as an analogy that, if it takes let's say a year to build your house, year and a half to build your house, plus some time in design, let's just say it's conceivable 1.5 to 2 years of your life you're going to be with your builder, right? For my industry. And, ours is very relationship based. And so I often been joking, like, you're going to be with us longer than like the 3 girls you dated in college consecutively. Yeah. Like, you're going to be with us for a long time. So choose the builder or the relationship of your choice a little bit based on who you want to be around for a while, honestly. And I think it's important because people focus so often on price, but relationship to me personally is more important. Actually, when we first met, actually was not under ideal circumstances. Right. And there was a lot of different things going on there, but I appreciate the conversation that you and I had. You and I talked probably 3 or 4 times on the phone, and I wasn't super involved with it, but I got involved with it, and it wasn't really the intent, but I appreciate how you handled it. It was just very straight. It was very matter of fact, and we had never met in person. And so it was fun when we did finally meet to like put a face to the name and like understand, going back to your comment, Mike, about assuming the best, like after you kind of told your story and your side of it, like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And, you're here today, and we continue to work with you, and I think you're great people. That makes that's a huge, how someone handles something when things are very difficult, even if it was, doesn't matter whose fault it was, but when they handle it like straight face right in the eyes and say, hey, we messed up, or we'll get through it. That matters a lot to me. And that's not about price anymore. That's about a relationship, because you're like, okay, that steel rod has been tested in the fire, that sword. Like, I can go to battle now with something I know that's been proven. And so anyway, it's something every time I see your name, I actually think about that as a testament, as a positive thing. So I think a lot of good things can come out of a negative situation when it's handled right. It's like an opportunity to do something.
Yeah.
If we had done it perfectly,
Yeah.
I never would have reached out to you to say, can you release the rest of the payment? and you and I talked a little bit, and then and you and Andrew talked, and one thing led to another, and before you know it, I think we came out and met with you out here. We went to
lunch. We went to Lagos Tacos. You're right.
Yeah.
And we kind of made our pitch to you, and then you found it interesting, and that led to this.
Well, and it's funny because I think salesmen, Andrew and I, well, you're a salesman too, Mike, but like salesmen love to be sold. Like I love to sell. I actually love to sell other people's stuff. Actually, it's way more enjoyable to sell other people's stuff because I don't have to, do any of the back of work.
Perform it.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So like even the sponsorship for the podcast, and I won't sponsor something that I don't believe in, but I love selling other people's products, especially when I believe in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't sell it, right? And I just love that because I love introducing people. I mean, that's really what sales is, whether it's introducing them to your team or introducing them to someone else's team. But I loved how you guys took a difficult situation and came back over the top saying, hey, what can we do to earn your business and to be a partner with you? Like that resonated with the sales side of me. Like, okay, someone who is trying to run from responsibility or trying to get out of it doesn't do what you did, which is ask for more business, and like in the way you did it also is what was really important as well. But because it was meaningful, it was real, and it was full of integrity. I haven't thought about it until just right now, but that's the reason why we do business with you, and why we'll continue to do business with you, and we'll do more business, right? Because those things matter.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
Well, it's kind of funny. I think we had a job, and this that it was actually a multifamily apartment job, and something went wrong, and I think it was a communication, and our measurer and he's like, this is not good, and I was like, this is great, because I just knew we wanted to build that relationship. It was a minor problem that I knew we could fix. It wasn't gonna we could end up in a good spot, and I was like, we just solidified this relationship this PM. Now we're gonna work together. Now he's gonna remember how we work together, and I look forward to that.
yeah,
That's construction. It's so imperfect.
Construction's
There's
so
always going to be
imperfect.
challenges.
Yeah.
That's how you respond to them.
We had Barack Steenlage on from Anchor Builders.
Anchor Builders, yeah.
Yeah, he told the funniest story about like one of his guys like backed a bobcat into the neighbor's house and like ruined some stuff, and like he turned it into multi-million dollars worth of business, which was basically, it started with, it was a small repair which he took care of, and then this homeowner couldn't find anyone to do, let's say, a deck, so he did the deck, and then so basically he kept going. So I joked on the podcast that, hey man, if you really want to increase your sales, just do a little bit of property damage, not a lot of property damage, just enough that you can fix it and then do some more.
Oh, sorry, I ran over that tree.
Yeah.
Little sapling.
Yeah. So it's funny because it's weird that you have a hammer in your card bag. You hand out cards and go around and bang some mirrors on the way out of the building.
There's some rocks and some windows.
Oh, that's funny. Well, as we get closer to, it's interesting because, we've recorded this the second time, as we mentioned to the audience. This podcast was completely different than
Yeah, it
the
was.
first one.
Yeah.
I mean, the other one, we talked all about what, Glassheart specialities could do. And I guess a plug for you guys is check your website is incredibly beautiful. You guys spent a lot of money in redoing it, and I love the way it interfaces. For those out there that, we didn't go into all the different specialty things that you do, and it's really impressive what you can do, and we get to focus on that right now. I want to just kind of close a little bit with, where do you see the future of your business, and what's kind of what does your 1, 3, 5 years kind of look like from here on out?
I'll let Andrew answer because I'm curious as well.
Oh,
How many more how many more companies are you buying?
I hope we do buy another company. I'd like to do at least one more.
Okay.
Yeah, no, and I just can't, we actually had our we've been doing some, actually somewhat of a culture thing, but also strategic plan. And we had an old strategic plan. We had old values, old vision, old mission. It was for the glass art. Now we've got this other avenue, which is, the multifamily and the neighborhood production builders, or, the tract builders, as people would say. And we're trying to identify what that looks like. And I've got an idea in my mind, but I want everyone else to, kind of, let's all talk about it. Let's, figure out what that is. But, I see us growing with the custom builders locally interior designers, architects, and other glass fabricators for glass art design. You know, and I see, you know, revenue-wise, I'm thinking, you know, he'd probably go crazy when he sees the numbers that I think we can get to. And I think you did say, I said you something, and you're like, I don't know, that looks pretty
And then he said, we need to talk.
yeah, we need to talk.
It's like, I think Andrew's delusional.
Yeah. But, you know, and I think it's all based in some reality too. I mean, I think there would need to be some acquisitions in there, but, you know, I want to be, you know, the go-to in multifamily showers and mirrors. I want to be the go-to in production builders, track builders, because of our quality, because of our reputation, because of our pricing, all of that. But, you know, custom builders, I think, you know, reputation matters in any industry, and how you deal with problems, just like how you get this relationship with a PM that is building a, you know, 200 unit multifamily apartment complex. You know, a lot of that's driven by cost. They don't have maybe as much say, whereas you're doing a $20 million custom home, that's usually driven by relationships. They know they can lean on you, and the cost is important. But if you're in the ballpark, that relationship, we've worked with you before, things have gone sideways, you know, it's customized. How did you handle it? So building that reputation is kind of, I think, another way to get there.
I didn't notice this just now because I'm looking at your shirt as you're talking about this thing. It says glass art, and then obviously the rest of your name is design. You have one of the best names in the business because there's very few names that tell the user or the buyer or the end product purchaser, if you will, what you do, who you are, and like what level you are in stratus. You have glass, art, and design in your name. It'd be very interesting because you didn't the person you bought it from, but it's a pretty genius name.
It is,
because there's a lot of really bad names in just general.
Yeah.
And I think my own name is pretty bad in the sense that, like, as a builder, why does every builder think they need to have their name slapped on the side of their truck? Like, as a 22-year-old, I really wish someone in college marketing had talked a little bit about the power of branding, because that was not something that was mentioned. And we actually last year went through a rebranding phase. You know, we did new logos and all the other stuff, but we actually did look at some other names. And then at the end of this time, it's like, oh man, I've done this for 20 years. To change it now seems like you're going the wrong way. But your name is great, and it seems like from a branding standpoint, it's spot on with wherever you want to take it. Yeah. Because I'm thinking about from production, right? If you're a production and you're coming off as glass art design, just by the name alone, it's like, oh, these guys get it. You know, it's still a piece of art. They still care about quality. Like, your name seems to resonate that, and you've also backed it up.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of alluded to it earlier. I mean, the people that we're selling to, the volume type customers, we're selling as Glass and Mirror Minnesota. But the fact that they they find out that we own Glass Art Design and that we're all in the same shop, and they say it just gives us a credibility for quality that I don't know how you'd earn it any other way.
Why would you, out of curiosity, why would you keep the old brand name?
I think Glass Art Design, it is a great name if you're like for you doing custom.
I see.
But if you're like a value type builder, it doesn't sound like a value brand.
So interesting. So I'm so excited about it because it resonates with my core values. Right. But it could actually be the opposite if you were trying to. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. And then, you know, we changed it. It used to be Glass Mirror Outlet, which they said, man, that sounds cheap. Yeah. It was a discount. I remember I was checking into Associated Builders and Contractors thinking we were new members or something. What are you again? Is that glass, discount glass? What was it called again? And I was like, well, we definitely got to change that name. But to change it from Glass and Mirror Outlet to Glass and Mirror Minnesota, we kept the Glass and Mirror, one for SEO purposes, one because it's self-descriptive and you know what you're selling. Yep. But Minnesota, why Minnesota? And I think that's partly SEO, you know, everyone search engine optimization looking for, but also to give that, this is our vision too, is that we are the Glass and Mirror company for Minnesota.
From Minnesota.
Yeah.
Which I assume then would send to like a 4-state area as well. Big.
Yeah, then we have to change it to Midwest.
Yeah, that would require another glass company.
North American that's the long-term vision. We'll get to revenue later, Mike.
Planet Earth.
Planet Earth. What where do you see the next 3-5 years? Will you still be involved in the company 3 to 5 years from now, or what's kind of your trajectory?
I think if I have much less of a role. I have an important role, and Andrew and I interact a lot. I think probably my most important role is his sounding board.
Yeah.
Strategy, sales.
He's like, because you know, nobody else has time to
inside consultant.
Yeah. And we both, I think I love that part of the business. But I think if I do this for much longer, I'm going to be itching to buy another business so that, this goal I've always had of slowing down doesn't actually happen. Secretly, it might not.
You try to sabotage your own goals.
Yeah, it might not really be what I want, I think.
Yeah.
As soon as I start getting my arms around things, that's been that way my whole life, I'll do something to screw it up so that I have to work harder again.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge then, I think is what we're talking about is, okay, if we're bringing in another company, if we're bringing in more people, if we're bringing in more revenue, I'm thinking, and again, I'm in the day-to-day, I'm in the weeds every day too, talking about someone's shower door that was just a little bit off or something like that. And that's like a highly detailed thing for a retail customer in their home and, Woodbury. And I'm like trying to think about, okay, how do I set up my sales organization, so then when we take on these builders that we have this flow, and are there levels as an install manager managing these people, as a shop managing, and trying to set up really an org chart for what we can scale to. So that's kind of what I think with acquisition and how do you bring that on. And I think that's going to be the real challenge in the next few years. Right now we did the hard part, I think. The hard part's still coming, but setting up those systems that can be scalable, that you can actually onboard more people. I didn't feel like we were there before. Now I do.
Yeah. I feel like, and I think we talked about this for me last time, I was right in the middle of we've been basically almost a year now into kind of our process change, and it's been pretty brutal.
Yeah,
it is not an enjoyable place to be. I'd say the last year and a half, frankly, you see this, the whatever changed, you had a half a year of it, not working. Then you spend a year fixing it. And now it's only now where you start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that you start feeling like, wow, this, and I'm kind of thankful for my team for kind of sticking around, because you're like, wow, it has not been, I've not always been what I've wished I was. I wish personally as an owner, I'd like to be able to create enough space to give my team my time when they need it, where I feel like, I'm a little bit like you, Andrew, where I block my time so efficiently within my kind of schedule that I don't leave enough time in there for flexibility. And I think I need to do, that's one of my goals for next year, is actually the opposite of what you did, which is just, I need to say no to more stuff, because I've spent 43 years saying yes to pretty much everything. And so it's actually a lot harder to say no to things, but I do think I see some real benefits to being more present, not only personally, but also in the business. And I don't think I'll ever really get there personally, but it's more of just an aspiration to try to create space where, if your team says, hey, I need time, and I'm like buzzing out the door to a podcast, or I'm going to go do a tour of something, or I'm going, I just almost in too many commitments, or you got to hire some more people to help take that off of you.
Yeah.
Because does either one of you have an assistant or anyone that helps manage some of your, have you guys ever thought about it, or do you ever feel like
every day, because I had one, for 25 years, I had an assistant, and it was great.
And so why haven't you?
Cost money.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's too small a business really to justify it.
Okay. That's funny, because I'm a company of 5 and I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I had a virtual assistant I still have one for the last 8, 9, 10 months. It's been a game changer for me mentally.
I should look into that.
Because I'll put you onto some people for that, and it's been absolute for me personally, as someone that has a lot of ideas. I need to get them out of my brain and on paper. And for me, being able to delegate, sometimes it's just simple stuff. Hey, we create this PDF for a pitch, or we do this or that. And I don't have a full-time marketing person, so it's they take many hats, many roles. I have found that to be extremely liberating for me personally.
Well, I think there's a threshold too, where it's like, okay, what's your time worth? That's kind of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm in there putting this spreadsheet together just because I want to get these numbers. Okay, but I could be selling this, $1 million house, and it's like, what is that worth? And I think we're not there yet, but I think that threshold is where it's at.
But if it frees up time, and
and what's your time?
Especially, you could probably get 10 more networking groups in. Well, thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah.
We'll leave it on that. Where can our guests find you if they're looking to do work with you or find out more about you?
GlassArtDesign.com, GlassMereMinnesota.com. Glassmere Minnesota production and multifamily. Glass Art Design is the decorative and high-end custom. I think we always have lunch and learns. Interior designers come in, and I think that's brings a lot of value. So reach out to us. We're always welcome to have them in and show them the space.
Sounds great.
We've got a great deli around the corner if the food's good. But I mean, we do one-person design firms and huge contractors, and lunch and learns, and we'll do it for anybody. You just never know where leads come from. So we're just really open there. You're not too small for us to want to do a lunch and learn with you. If you want to come and have a lunch and learn, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's Andrew at Glass Art Design and Mike at Glass Art Design. Really clever.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot easier than spelling your last name.
Yeah.
Actually, LeJeune is pretty easy. It just sounds fancy.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on. Thanks for coming on to the Curious Builder podcast for those listening, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.